All right. Hi, it's Eric Kirkpatrick again from Kirkpatrick Law Offices in Belleville, Illinois. What I wanted to talk to you today is something I think I've talked about before, but I want to go into a little more detail about it. The topic is giving a good history of the accident that you've had to both your employer in a workers' compensation case and to your doctors if you've had either a personal injury in an automobile accident or something like that, or if you've had a workers' compensation case. Okay, the reason that the history is important, first of all to your employer, is so that they know what happened to you and know that you're making a workers' compensation claim. This is what they then turn into their workers' compensation insurance carrier. The insurance carrier, not necessarily your employer, but the insurance carrier will then decide based on the report that your employer gives to them whether or not they're going to find your case to be compensable and pay your medical bills and pay your temporary total disability benefits while you're off work. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I've had people come into my office and tell me a couple of things. One is that the employer knew they were hurt at work, but the employer told them, hey, please don't turn this in as a workers' compensation case. Why don't you go to the doctor, tell the doctor you fell in the bathtub or were hurt at home, and we'll take care of all of your medical bills. We'll take care of you. Don't worry about that. So sometimes that client has done so. Well, then when the employer doesn't pay the medical bills because they're expensive or doesn't take care of the person like they should under the Work Comp Act, the person's just out of luck, and he's having to hire a lawyer to get that straightened out, to get the medical bills paid and get what he's entitled to, all because the medical history to the doctor shows up in a record as patient comes in today and claims he was hurt at home. Your case is hard to recover from at that point if that happens. Another situation that I have seen people run into is they get hurt. They don't want to bother their employer with a workers' compensation case because they're friends or they've been there for a while. But then the pain that they think is going to go away just doesn't. And then they report the claim later on. You've got 45 days to report an accident, but the longer you wait, the more suspicious an insurance company considers it to be. So what happens is some people then just decide that they won't give a history of any accident at all. Well, then when they do need to make a claim because they have missed work for a period of time or because they're getting medical bills in the mail, it's hard to then go back and get a doctor to change the history. Automatically, when an insurance company reviews the claim and decides whether they're going to pay benefits, you are not credible if you don't give the right history. Another example that affects claims is when people give an incomplete history. Okay? And that is when, to use an example, is when a person is hurt at work. They go to their employer, they fill out the accident report, and maybe they think, oh, my shoulder's hurt in this accident, and my elbow, and my wrist, but I'm only going to report my shoulder because 15 years ago I had a wrist fracture. There's no sense in turning that in. Well, what happens in that situation is, again, the employer is going to be turning that accident report into their insurance carrier. And if you have not put down all of your injuries on your accident report to your employer, then you will run into a situation where you treat for a couple of months and then all of a sudden that elbow or that wrist and that situation is not getting any better, and then you report it to the doctor, then you report it to the employer, and you're back in the same boat I described a minute ago, which is you are not going to be considered to be credible to the insurance carrier nor to the arbitrator. But anyway, it causes you to have to work harder to get the rights that you're entitled to. The other issue is sometimes people haven't reported their complete injury to their doctors. And then they treat with the doctor on one particular injury, and then 3 months later they say, oh yeah, doctor, I hurt my other shoulder in the same accident. Well, then the doctor doesn't have much to go on and may refuse to treat you because he's not, he doesn't feel like he has the authority or doesn't feel like he can in good faith try to bill the workers' compensation carrier for an injury you didn't report to him when the first time you saw him or her. The point of all this is, if you are injured in an accident, make sure that you give an accurate and updated history to your medical doctor. Don't just assume you can fix it later on because you are just going to be asking for trouble. As I've said before in these videos, your employer is not ultimately in control of the destiny of your workers' compensation case. And by destiny, I mean whether it is an accepted claim by the insurance company or whether they decide to dispute it. Obviously, if a case is disputed, you get to go to the arbitrator, but and the arbitrator can decide the issue. However, if you can get through your workers' compensation case or your personal injury case in a more smooth manner, that's the route to go. So anyway, be careful what history you give to the employer and to the doctors and to any insurance company. If you happen to talk to one, just make sure it's thorough, make sure it's complete, make sure it's solid, and most of all, make sure it's the truth. Thanks. Have a good day.